Okay, welcome to Christ and Culture. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we are going to continue to be talking about this situation here in New York State. I am presently in New York State doing this broadcast, and it's extremely cold right now. We're in the first day of February, and it is below zero out. It was 7 below last night. And I am attempting to try to get the Reverend Mel McGinnis to talk about this today. And we're having a little bit of difficulty getting through on this Google Hangout. So while we're waiting for him, I will just go ahead and recap and summarize what the situation here in New York is. Well, a couple weeks ago, there was the New York Assembly, and they got together this legislation, and they put together a bill that would basically give women the right here in the New York State to have an abortion up until the very time of of birth. And okay, so there we are. All right. There we are. Sent the letter off, and we'll see what happens. Okay, something is happening here. Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. 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 Well, I'm glad we could get this to work, and it's a good, this. Did you survive the 7 below? Was it last night?
Yeah. And the previous night.
Yes.
And the previous night. So
yeah, this is kind of the way to go for a video chat because I don't have to leave my house. You're in your church office, right?
Right.
So you can stay warm in there and not have to worry about parking and walking and all that stuff. So yeah. And now you just got back from Louisiana?
Mississippi.
So it was a lot warmer down there, huh?
Sure it was, yeah. It was nice to be able to train outside without having to worry about gloves, hat, and all the other extra stuff to keep you warm.
Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. It's really brutal here. I'm going to be heading out to Michigan actually tomorrow. That's why I wanted to try to get our chat in if we could today. But it's supposed to get better over the weekend. It's supposed to get up to like 30, 40. So we're finally out of that.
Yeah, that'd be much better. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so you're in New York?
Yes, I'm in New York right now.
Oh, okay.
But tomorrow I'm leaving for Michigan. And I'll be there for a few days. But let's see if we can get Mel back here on the network. Seems like his signal dropped off a little bit, and we're still waiting to get the signal back. I do see an icon back there, but I don't see a picture. I see an icon. Looks like he's part of the system, but I don't see his picture. I see something there. Something's coming into. There you go.
I'm back. There we go. Sorry.
Are you on Wi-Fi?
No, I don't.
You're hardwired into your computer. You have a hard.
No. It's Wi-Fi.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, and you do normally have pretty good Wi-Fi there, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Now, I didn't ask you before about this different topic, but what did you think about the high school boys and the March for Life? Wasn't that a real good example of fake news?
Exactly. Media smeared, trigger trashed, death threatened Covington boys really stood for the Catholic principles, not only of pro life, but what you are to do in the very situation they were in.
I mean,
Meaning,
exactly. I mean, if someone is threatening you, uh, you try to be a peacemaker. And if that
yep,
means you just stand there and smile and don't strike back, I mean, how would you react, Mel, if someone got up into your face with a drum and started beating it and chanting right in your face? I mean, don't you think you would have a natural tendency or reaction to try to push this person away who comes into your space?
right, that would be the natural reaction. Was Nick, did exactly what you are to do. Just stand there and be peaceful. I know the press and celebrities and leftists got all over him for the smirk that was on his face. But again, that's their interpretation. They really don't know what was in his heart. And you hear him talk about it, and he was smiling at him, just trying to diffuse whatever conflict or emotions that could have gotten out of hand by being a peaceful person in a situation where there were two opposing sides.
Right. And it's really a good example. I think it exposed to everyone to see the fake news industry, because here you had a situation where there was a short video clip that gave an impression, just an impression. And the person who put it on the internet knew that it would give that impression. And the news media outlets like CNN and the Washington Post and the New York Times, they gobbled that up because that was used for fuel to try to set a fire to push their political persuasion. And they didn't care whether there was any context or they didn't care whether they got the story right or not. It was more important for them to set up and frame these high school kids and to try to communicate a political point. It's a perfect example of fake news, isn't it?
Yes, set up and frame Catholic high school boys. I feel like Dennis Prager has it correct when he says the scum of the earth, according to the left, are pro life, heterosexual, Catholic teenage boys wearing a MAGA hat. And it's interesting. I got on Facebook with a discussion with a university law professor from University of Albany. And I asked him, do you feel that Dennis Prager is correct when he says the scum of the earth, according to the left, are pro-life, heterosexual, Catholic teenage boys wearing MAGA hats? And this leftist law professor said, yes, they're the scum of the earth.
Wow.
That tells you
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the intersectionality hierarchy, and you're familiar with that big term that's been popularized lately, right? Intersectionality, where it talks about you have a hierarchy of
Uh, yeah,
exploited or underprivileged people, and you have minorities, and then you have like LGBT minorities, and then you go on down the list of intersectional groups. And the at the bottom of the whole, the less valuable voice in the whole conversation is a white male. It could be Anglo-Saxon or Catholic or whatever, but it's white male. They're the ones that really, they are the exploiters according to this intersectionality theory. And so that's what the news media jumps on. You know, anytime they have an attempt to try to smear white males, they go for it. And they did it in this case, although they were exposed. I think they were embarrassed. And this is, I think, one of the greatest examples of fake news in the last half a decade or so. Wouldn't you think it's got to rank up there in the top 10?
I think absolutely. It definitely makes all the entire context of what was going on once you saw the film that was more.
Yes. Yeah, we're losing you a little bit there.
I mean, you believe. And I would also say that according to the left, their narrative already are oppressors, is the oppressed. So no matter what did by invading a drum in their boys, according to oppressors.
Right. I mean,
And
they're
made them
guilty before anything happens.
before anything happened. And no matter what happened,
Right.
still guilty.
Now, what I found really, yeah, I'm losing you here for a little bit. I got about maybe half of what you were talking about, but what I found really despicable is the news media's ignoring totally this Black Hebrew Israel group that was the real antagonist of this whole situation. You had these 4 or 5 adult men, Black Hebrew Israelites, racist, that are known for violence also in New York City. And they were spewing out racist and hateful speech to both the Catholic boys and also to the Indian group, the Native American group. And nobody in the mainstream media wants to say anything about the Black Hebrew Israelites. That should be the news headlines. Black Hebrew Israelites incite scene in the nation's capital, and then they should do an expose on who is this group and where did they come from and what do they believe and why are they so racist and everything like that. There should have been a whole expose on them, but you never hear a word about this group.
No, you don't. And I would say, too, that the media would also regard the Black Hebrew Israelites. So no matter how vile the language was from the Black Hebrew Israelites, that seems to be irrelevant. And the Catholic boys, once again, are the targets.
Right.
The targets of the smear.
Right.
The targets of whatever the left wants to do to spin that story.
Right. Right. I mean, even though focus should have been, the spotlight should have been on these Black Hebrew Israelites for their racist and hate speech. And that's what it has to be classified, racism and hate speech that they were spewing out, inciting they were trying to almost incite a riot. And the police should have been on them, first of all, right away and told them to come over to them and say, hey, you can't be inciting hateful activity in this nation's capital. This is a peaceful demonstration if you want to have one. But these boys are over there waiting for their bus, and the Native Americans are doing some kind of a demonstration. But you cannot be inciting a riot or violence on this site. But there were no police over there checking them, and while they were harassing the people, and the news media lets that go. That you're given a total pass if you're a Black Hebrew Israelite because you happen to be part of this intersectionality hierarchy. And if you're Black in the United States right now, you can pretty much say anything and do anything, and you're going to get a free pass because you are supposedly the oppressed people, and the white people are the oppressors. And the boys that were just waiting for their buses, they've got to be guilty under that scenario. And the Black people and the Native American people, they cannot be guilty because they are oppressed by definition under this intersectionality theory. Isn't that pretty much what you understand the media's view is?
Right. Intersectionality throws out any and all standards of objectivity. Any objective person looking at that whole scenario would realize that it was the boys who were being attacked.
Mhm.
And they would realize it was the black Hebrew Israelites that were shouting venomous, evil, wicked things against them. And it was the American Indian, Nathan Phillips, who invaded, violated the space of the Catholic boys.
Right, and we hear a lot about this Native American Indian elder. He's not the kind of character that the media wants to portray him. He's actually a professional activist that he goes from place to place. He actually, that very same day, he tried to break into and interrupt the Catholic mass in the biggest Catholic cathedral in Washington. He tried to come right in the door. They had to actually stop him and prevent him from becoming a distraction to the whole mass. So he's a disruptor. He's a professional activist.
Yep.
And what he told the mainstream media about the whole situation with the high school boys was totally false. You don't get up into somebody's face to try to diffuse the situation. You don't beat a drum in somebody's face if you want them to feel calm and peaceful.
Right.
You don't come after some boy. You just let those boys be boys and just let them sit over there, and you leave them alone, and they want to do their spirit chants as far as the high school cheers and stuff that they learn at their sporting events or whatever. Let them do that. They're high school kids. They're not adults.
Yep.
But you don't spin this whole story like you're the peacemaker and you're going over there and all this thing that the video shows is totally false.
The boys acted more like adults than the adults in the black Hebrew slaves and Nathan Phillips was supposed to be as an adult. Meaning, if you looked objectively at the behavior of the sides that were there, you would say that the boys acted more like adults.
No question. No question.
Than
They
the other
acted a
adults,
lot more like
more
adults.
juvenile-like. Yeah.
Now, have you ever done any research into the theology of the Black Hebrew Israelites? Have you ever heard of that group before?
May have heard it and made no study of what they're about.
I happened to catch
Go ahead.
a couple broadcasts by Dr. James White on his podcast, The Dividing Line, about a year or two ago. And he actually went into the theology of the Black Hebrew Israelites. Basically, essentially, what they claim to be is they claim to be part of the lost tribes of Israel. They claim to be Jewish. And they have this whole distorted understanding of race and heritage. I mean, if you ask the Orthodox Jews, are these Black Hebrew Israelites in New York City, are they related to you in any way? The Jews will just laugh at the notion that Black Hebrew Israelites have any connection with the original tribes of Israel. And it's just, it's comical. It's sad, actually.
Talk about being deluded. It's right there with the Black Hebrew Israelites. And when you just listen to the tape and all the vile things that were shouted, I mean, it shows that that group has a whole lot of problems, mental, spiritual, all the way around. And to me, it just kind of reminded me of, hey, there's the black version of the KKK.
Well, I know in New York City, I've heard that if you're riding one of the subways over there, you might encounter Black Hebrew Israelites just get up in the middle of the subway and start preaching and just accusing white people of something that they don't like. They're just violently racist in their theology. They pronounce the name of God differently instead of, like Jehovah or Yahweh, which is approximation of what the Old
Mhm.
Testament consonants are, Yahweh, YHWH. They pronounce it some kind of Yoshu or Yoshu or something. They totally make up a new pronunciation, and the theology is twisted. It's really mixed up. James White actually debated one of the camps of the Black Hebrew Israelites. They're not all unified. There are warring camps within the little religion of the Black Hebrew Israelites, but they get on the internet, and if somebody says something against them or does something against them, they basically get on the internet and just attack that person. They do videos, hours worth of videos against that person. A lot of hatred, really strong words, profanity. You heard from the videos that you probably saw. There's a lot of profanity. The attitude alone is anti-Christian.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
right.
just there's not a lot of love. It's just basically you better line up with what we're teaching and preaching, or else you're just lost and you're a pagan, and we don't want anything to do with you unless you conform to our understanding. And that's what we saw in the video.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you saw in the video, and people really got a dose of what they're all about. And the press, I feel like, totally missed what they needed to see, or they
Exactly.
ignored what they needed to see.
They willfully ignored it because, again, there are certain groups in society today that can get away with a lot of different speech. You can actually, if you're a part of the so-called oppressed groups, you can spew racism, and then, like the young high school boys, you can be doing nothing, and you can be
Right.
accused of racism and accused of white privilege. I mean, it's the whole theory, that progressivist, liberal, far left, radical theory. And they were willing to take video and doctor the video and manipulate it. Now, I was watching another program that says, well, this is just the beginning, because what will happen eventually is they're getting to the point right now where they can actually take video and edit it in such a way that you can match the person's lips, any person, with any kind of speech that sounds just like them. So you could
Oh
show
boy.
any politician in any situation and manipulate the audio and manipulate the tape with computers now to make them say anything
Mm,
you want them to say. Isn't that a scary thought?
that is a scary thought. Wow, that could be used for such destructive and despicable purposes. And yeah, just need to be aware of these things, and uh, take inventory of what we believe about social media and the increased abilities in technology, weighing them out to say, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? And have a mind of discernment about them.
And right, and to pray and ask God's protection, because if you have a software program that can basically make you say anything that your opponent wants you to say, to smear you, to basically destroy your reputation, you know that technology is going to be used, and it's going to be used against Christians. It's going to be used against pastors. Can you imagine an
Yes,
enemy
I
of a
agree.
specific pastor or enemy of a church, and they can show this man walking on the sidewalk, and a guy with a camera comes up to him and asks him a question, and can take that video and manipulate it so it sounds exactly like whatever the editor wants him to sound like. They could ask him questions about race. They could ask him questions that would, with a twisted mind of an editor, video editor, could make him appear to be saying 180 degrees out of what he actually said. And then they put that on the news. And then millions of people all over the country and the world even look at this and go, well, we saw it with our own eyes. It has to be true. But
Yeah.
no, not today with the editor that we have and the programming and the software. Yeah, it's like George Orwell all over again.
Absolutely. I feel like it's not only that, but supersized. When you
Yeah,
can manipulate technology like that in order to put words in somebody's mouth that makes it look like it's for real when it's really not.
right, right. Well, I
Mm.
guess we've talked about New York and the terrible thing happening here with abortion and Virginia. We talked about that awful exchange with their governor and the radio program interview where he was advocating for infanticide. And then we talked about the fake news, and we've got all these things happening. It just shows that we are headed into some pretty scary times ahead because as
Yes.
we become less and less as Christianity and the Christian church becomes more in the crosshairs of these people, we are going to get battered and bruised, and
Right.
we're gonna be suffering for the faith, which is something that we do have a history of in Christianity, but we haven't experienced in a long time in our culture. But we just have to be ready for that. So, well, I appreciate you coming on the program. We're losing the signal here a little bit. I guess the cable network is not so good right here. But we did get in most of this conversation, and I think the video is pretty good. So we'll end the Google Hangout here. But appreciate you coming
Okay.
by to discuss these things.
Yeah, it's been great to talk again.
Yeah, and we'll have to do this again, and we can pick up on some other topics. I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about
Oh,
in the future.
right.
So you stay warm over there. I know it was 7 below
Yes.
last night. It was like 7 below the night before. Um, stay safe, and we'll talk to you again. God
Yeah.
bless. God bless. And we'll see you all with another program. God bless.